You're listening to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky Duraeus. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky Duraeus right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review AEW Dynamite from June 28th, 2023. We got a lot of things to cover right here on this not-so-special episode of Dynamite. I thought this was probably one of the weaker episodes of AEW Dynamite that we had in a couple of weeks and in a couple of months, per se. Wasn't really the best show, in my opinion. And the reason why I say that is because if you think about it, nothing really special happened on the show. Really, what sticks in my mind coming from this week's AEW Dynamite is that crazy Sting spot, just like you see in the thumbnail of this video. That Sting spot, man, I have a lot to say about that. Look, I love Sting. I think he's fantastic, but bro, he's 64 years old doing a spot like that. I don't know about y'all, but I was genuinely worried for Sting's health. That is my opinion. But we had other things happen on this show. Of course, we had Jon Moxley taking on New Japan Pro Wrestling's Tomohiro Ishii. Blood and Guts has been officially announced, and it will be taking place July 19th at the TD Garden. So that is going to be a great match. Of course, it's going to be the Blackpool Combat Club taking on the Elite. So it's going to be the final blow-off. And then this whole feud is going to be over. So we're going to be getting that July 19th. Of course, we also had the Tornado Tag Team match with Sting and Darby Allin taking on Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. The Dark Order is involved on this week's AEW Dynamite, and there's some tension brewing when it comes to Hangman Page and the Dark Order. We had the Hung Bucks, that being the Hangman Page and the Young Bucks, taking on John Silver, Alex Reynolds, and Evil Uno. A lot of interesting developments going on when it comes to this match. I will be talking about that and much more right here on the AEW Dynamite review. But overall, not really the best show. I wasn't really that invested in what I was watching a lot because of the fact that, again, we just had Forbidden Door. But if you really think about it, to me, nothing really special happened on this show. It's one of those weeks, to be quite honest with you. But I'll dive deep on AEW Dynamite more later on in this review. And also, another thing I forgot to mention, Jack Perry. Yes, Jack Perry cut a heel promo. And a lot of people talking about how he looks like Stephen Hyde from that 70s show. So we're going to be talking about that as well because there's a lot of negative reactions. There's a lot of positive reactions. I'm going to be giving you guys what I think on this Jack Perry promo. But yeah, man, I definitely have a lot to say on this week's AEW Dynamite. But before I go on with the Dynamite review, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Of course, if you guys had missed it, the AEW/New Japan Pro Wrestling Forbidden Door 2 pay-per-view review is up on the channel. I talk about Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega delivering a 40-minute spectacle, because that's exactly what it was. If you guys haven't checked out the AEW Forbidden Door review, the link will be in the description below. Also, the Raw review is up on the channel. I talk about the go-home show before this Saturday's Money in the Bank pay-per-view coming to us from London, England. Honestly, nothing really special happened on this show. It was a fine, if you could really call it that, go-home show for Money in the Bank. SmackDown is clearly going to be the better show this week, considering the fact that SmackDown, even though it's taped, it's going to be in London, and the atmosphere of that crowd is going to be unlike we haven't seen, in a while. Maybe not in a while. I shouldn't really say that because we've been getting a lot of fucking fantastic crowds on both WWE and AEW, so I don't even know what the hell I said. But overall, I talk about the go-home show before Money in the Bank, of course, on the Raw review. So if you guys haven't checked out the Forbidden Door and the Raw review, the link will be in the description below. So we kick off AEW Dynamite with, of course, Jon Moxley, the head of the Blackpool Combat Club, taking on New Japan Pro Wrestling's Tomohiro Ishii. couple of nights after getting knocked the fuck out by Konosuke Takeshita with that furious elbow spot that is still stuck in my goddamn brain. But let's go through the match. Both men go head-to-head. Both exchange chops, and yes, we got a bunch of chop exchanges in this match. The crowd claps and goes up on their feet, and then we get a shoulder tackle. We get a series of shoulder tackle exchanges and shoulder tackle no-sells by both men. Ishii misses an enziguri, and then Mox misses a kick. Both exchange elbows. At this point, the crowd is 50-50. One crowd is chanting Moxley, the other crowd is chanting Ishii. After that, we get a running shoulder tackle by Ishii after getting taken into the corner. Mox goes for a kick, and then we get a kick to the face of Ishii. Mox then goes for the shoulder tackle, and then Mox kicks the head of Ishii. And then we get a cover and a near fall. Moxley then sends Ishii to the outside. At this point, Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta, of course, are close to Ishii. They, of course, came out with Jon Moxley at the start of this match. Ishii tries to come back, but then Moxley ends up hitting an elbow. Moxley goes for a tope suicida, but what happens? Eddie Kingston comes out. He threatens Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. And once we're back from commercial break, Ishii goes to the top, and then he goes to the second rope, and then he hits a superplex on Jon Moxley. We get a cover by Ishii and a near fall. After that, both men goes for a series of exchanges. Ishii goes for a series of left and right elbows on Jon Moxley. Mox then hits an elbow, knocking down Ishii. After that, Mox goes for the Gotch-style pile driver. But then we get a cover and a near fall. Moxley then drives his elbows on Ishii, but then Ishii flips him off while he drives his elbows Blackpool Combat style on Ishii. And then he applies the Bulldog Choke. Eddie Kingston and Claudio Castagnoli are staring at one another while Jon Moxley and Ishii are beating the living shit out of each other. You know, I saw this one tweet on Twitter regarding this whole little, stare down between Claudio Castagnoli and Eddie Kingston. It was this kind of tweet where it kind of described, have you ever had that day where, it was like the day after a test and the teacher basically stated, everybody did well, but one person did horribly bad. I'm not going to name who it was. And then, of course, the teacher just stares at the particular student that did so bad on the test. That's exactly how Eddie Kingston and Claudio Castagnoli stared at one another. It was the funniest shit ever. But at the same time, I absolutely loved it because of the fact that, of course, Eddie Kingston and Claudio Castagnoli have a lot of history. And, of course, there's a lot of tension brewing with not only Eddie Kingston and Claudio Castagnoli. I mean, both men absolutely hate each other. But there's tension brewing with Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. But later on, back to the match. Mox still has the Bulldog Choke applied. We get a back suplex by Tomohiro Ishii. After that, we get a series of exchanges and spots left and right by both of these men. Mox ends up going for the King Kong Lariat. And then we get a cover, and Ishii kicks out at 1. Ishii goes for the knee. We get a cover, and another 1 count. Both men knock each other down with a lariat. After that, both headbutt one another. Ishii goes for the slap. Then he goes for the headbutt. Then Moxley goes for the paradigm shift, the Death Rider, whatever you want to call it. I usually call it the Death Rider. But we get a cover into near fall. Ishii then counters the Death Rider later on because he actually goes for another one. And then Ishii goes for the DDT. Ishii ends up hitting a lariat. We get a cover and a near fall. Moxley goes for the cutter. After that, Ishii goes back up. Ishii ends up going for the sliding lariat. Then he goes for the cover and a kick out. Ishii then proceeds to pick up Moxley, but then Moxley lands on his feet. Then, after that, Moxley goes for the knee. He ends up hitting the Death Rider. We get a cover by Moxley and a near fall. And then after that, Moxley tries to go for the curve stomp, but then he misses. Ishii goes for the enziguri. After that, Moxley hits the stomp, and then he finally hits the Death Rider, and we get a cover. And Jon Moxley gets the win over Tomohiro Ishii. After the match, Moxley and Eddie Kingston just argue with one another, and they stare at one another. Then after that, Moxley elbows Eddie Kingston and just walks away. And what happens is Eddie Kingston follows Jon Moxley backstage. Overall thoughts on this opening match. I think, for an episode of Dynamite that really wasn't the best episode of Dynamite, in my opinion, this was a great opener. Usually when it comes to AEW Dynamite, they always have banger matches, in the opening match, which I always like to see because it really gets the crowd amped up for what they're about to watch, for the next 2 hours. Ishii is fantastic. I'm not the biggest New Japan watcher, but definitely I'll tell you right now, I am a fan of Tomohiro Ishii. Look, I know a lot of people do not like the style that Moxley and Ishii are wrestling. Of course, the Japanese style with the, those chop exchanges, the headbutts, all that type of stuff, but it's the Japanese style this wrestling audience, of course, AEW is the hardcore wrestling audience. They absolutely dig it. I fucking dig it. It's fantastic. So eat shit for all you haters out there. I don't give a single shit what anybody says. But overall, this was a great match. I loved the involvement of Eddie Kingston and, of course, Claudio Castagnoli because they have, some history with one another. Of course, they wrestled at Supercard of Honor a couple of months ago. But I loved the stare down between both men, Eddie Kingston and Claudio Castagnoli, because it goes to show you that this feud isn't over. But when it comes to Eddie Kingston and him being involved with this whole, Blackpool Combat Club versus Elite scenario, even though if you think about it, it kind of looks like it's random, it's really not because Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston have history with one another. But at the same time, I've always stated, ever since Eddie Kingston showed up a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite in that amazing, closing segment, where just Will Ospreay showed up, everybody showed up and beat the living shit out of each other. I loved the involvement of Eddie Kingston and him having that stare down with Jon Moxley. Also, of course, I loved the fact that Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley are arguing with one another because, of course, these guys were, kind of close. And now with Claudio being involved with the Blackpool Combat Club for almost a year now, and Moxley, not really having a problem and saying, Eddie Kingston, I don't know why you're fucking upset. It really creates for some compelling TV, but also at the same time, I really want to see a one-on-one program with Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. Now, we already saw that a couple of years ago in late 2020, but the roles were reversed. We had Jon Moxley be the babyface and Eddie Kingston was the heel. Now, in this scenario, the roles are reversed. Yeah, everybody talks about Claudio Castagnoli and Eddie Kingston, and it looks like we're going to be getting a rematch between the two men. Probably since, of course, Claudio is the Ring of Honor World Champion, probably we're going to be getting that at Ring of Honor's Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view in a couple of weeks. But I feel like the bigger story is with Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston because, again, those guys have history with one another, and if they ran that feud back, of course, the roles this time are going to be reversed, and I think it's going to be great television, in my opinion. I definitely look forward to hopefully getting a new program with Moxley and Eddie Kingston. After that, Renee Paquette is backstage, and she actually gets involved in this whole Blackpool Combat Club, Eddie Kingston, all that type of stuff. She actually gets involved later on in the show, which I absolutely enjoyed, by the way. I'll talk about that later on. Adam Cole pulls up in the arena, and another car comes in. It's MJF. MJF says, congratulations for getting sick at Forbidden Door. Cole says he was actually sick, but then MJF says he thinks they got on the wrong page, and says it's a huge opportunity for him, and he wasn't good enough to beat him for the title. And he says, just imagine what he and him would be doing as a unit. They could run this whole company together. It's about him, and of course, it's about him bonding. Both of them bonding. It's about both of them bonding. And he asks Adam Cole to hop in his car. And, they can be a couple bros. And then Cole ends up, of course, being the babyface, questions MJF's motives, because we all know MJF is an asshole. After that, Cole says he's going to say hello to a few people, and then MJF stops him, and he says, I actually have a gift for you. And, of course, it is a I'm better than you, baby shirt. And then MJF, after that, shows up the shirt, and he says, and you can get it right now at shopaew.com. Overall, this was great. I love the dynamic that AEW right now is creating with MJF and Adam Cole. I think it's pretty clear right now that the top program in AEW is not involving MJF. And there's pros and cons to that. Of course, the biggest con is that MJF is the world champion. And yes, he's showcased well, but he is not the top program. And if you really think about it, he should be the top program. The top program right now is the Blackpool Combat Club versus the Elite. But, again, I love what they're doing. Does it sound like a can they coexist type of storyline? Yes, but if you really think about it, they're trying to create something that really involves great chemistry. Because usually when WWE does these can they coexist, they would do it for any type of, match leading up to a pay-per-view. And this would be in any type of build. Name one time where AEW tried, a can they coexist type of deal in the build up to any one of their matches for a pay-per-view. Not really much as far as I'm concerned. I don't think at all. So, honestly, with AEW doing this type of thing with MJF and Adam Cole, I think it's great because it creates really good chemistry between both men. But not only that, the audience can really get, in tune with what they are doing, and they could possibly be super over. And then, of course, you lead to the big blow-off, which is, either MJF turning on Adam Cole or vice versa. So I'm definitely going to be giving this a chance, and I hope, they really do something big with this whole thing, because we all know we're going to be getting a title match between MJF and Adam Cole down the line. Most likely, I believe it's definitely going to be taking place at All In at Wembley, but I may be totally wrong. But that's what it looks like the direction is headed at. After that, the Blackpool Combat Club is backstage, but Renee Paquette is over there. She is pissed off. Of course, Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley are arguing, and Renee is getting basically in the middle of everything, and she tells Moxley to stop. She tells Eddie Kingston to stop, and Moxley just leaves, and what happens is Renee Paquette tells Eddie Kingston, and she points at, Eddie Kingston saying, "You better fix this right now." This was great. I loved the involvement of Renee Paquette because it's a scenario that, look, even though Renee Paquette is the interviewer, the audience knows that she's also the wife of Jon Moxley. So I loved her involvement there. Eddie Kingston's involvement was fantastic as well. I hope they really lead to something bigger here. I do want to see a Claudio Castagnoli versus Eddie Kingston match, but I really want Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston to really just renew their rivalry. That's just my opinion. That's what I see happening, but I may be totally wrong. But we're going to have to wait and see as the weeks go by. We had a very well-produced video package of course, Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega. If you guys haven't checked out that match at Forbidden Door, please go out of your way and watch the fucking match. I actually watched the first match back from Wrestle Kingdom, and even though that match was fantastic, I think the second match was 10 times better than their first match. Because if you really think about it, in their first Wrestle Kingdom match, Kenny Omega was basically dominating Will Ospreay almost the entire time. But, bro, just the atmosphere in the crowd in Toronto, unlike any other, bro. Unlike any other. I fucking sound like Vince Russo here. All right. We got a 6-man. We got the first of 2 6-man tag team matches. We got Orange Cassidy, El Hijo del Vikingo, and Keith Lee taking on Daniel Garcia and 2.0 of the Jericho Appreciation Society. Okay. Orange Cassidy, El Hijo del Vikingo, and Keith Lee. I know it's Orange Cassidy teaming up with other guys, and Orange Cassidy is, a very random guy, but that is the most random fucking pairing I could ever see for a trio. It was just like AEW was like, you know what? We got Vikingo, we got Keith Lee here. Let's just pair them up with Orange Cassidy and give us a good old 6-man tag team match. The match was great, but I mean, again, like, what was the point of Orange Cassidy teaming up with Vikingo and Keith Lee? There was really no point of it whatsoever. That's one of the reasons why I thought the show was kind of, nothing special this week. Vikingo and Garcia start. We get a spinning kick by Vikingo. Vikingo jumps through the ropes onto the apron, which looked fucking sick. We get a deep arm drag by Vikingo. He ends up going for the head scissors after that. Then Orange makes the tag. Angelo Parker tags in. And then after that, Parker, snatches the... So he has his hair comb. And then Orange just snatches his hair comb away. And he puts it in his pockets. Then after that, Matt Menard by accident clotheslines Angelo Parker. Then 2.0 run into one another into the corner. We get a drop kick into the corner by Orange. Orange has the comb, and he combs his hair. After that, Daniel Garcia takes it away. At this point, he is the legal man. Vikingo's on the top. And then he goes for the series of diving stomps. And then we get a running shooting star by Vikingo. And then we get a cover and a near fall. After that, Matt Menard goes after him. Daniel Garcia then goes for the kick onto the apron on Vikingo. We get a bunch of Keith Lee chants. Angelo Parker tags in. We get a double sledge on Vikingo. And then we get a snap suplex by Parker. After that, we get a cover into near fall. We get a side slam by Garcia. Once we're back from commercial break, the heels are in control. And then we get a bunch of "We Want Keith Lee" chants. Matt picks up Vikingo. And then he powerbombs Matt Menard. Garcia makes the tag. And then we get repeated hammer throws by the heel trio. After that, we get an elbow drop by Parker on the back of El Hijo del Vikingo. And then we get a cover into near fall once again. Vikingo makes the tag, and then Keith Lee ends up going for, the crossbody. We get a series of forearms by Keith Lee. Did he go for a crossbody? I don't think so. I got to watch that match back. 2.0 ends up ganging up on Keith Lee. Garcia dances on top of Lee. Lee ends up picking him up, and then he goes for the double clothesline on Angelo Parker and Matt Menard. After that, we get a chop by Garcia, no sold by Keith Lee. He takes Garcia into the corner. We get a double overhand chop by Keith Lee. After that, Vikingo goes for the Enziguri, who is the legal man. And this spot scared the fuck out of me. You know, I love Vikingo. I think he's fantastic. But, bro, relax with the shit that you do. Because Vikingo goes for a somersault over the top rope on the outside. And he fucking lands on Keith Lee. This man landed on Keith Lee. And the way he landed on the floor looked so brutal, bro. Like, this and the Sting spot legitimately scared me to death. I was genuinely worried for these guys. Vikingo goes for this fucking somersault and lands on his back on Keith Lee. But what happens is, actually, Keith Lee picks up Vikingo up and he just throws him on everybody. After that, Vikingo later on goes for the moonsault. We get the orange punch countered by Garcia, but then Garcia misses the Dragon Tamer. After that, Garcia counters the beach break into the pile driver. And then we get a cover into near fall. Orange ends up going for the crucifix, and then Garcia applies the Dragon Tamer. Vikingo goes for the thrust kick, and then Vikingo gets thrown out to the outside. Orange punch by Orange Cassidy. Lee makes the tag. We got a chop by Keith Lee, but then Keith Lee no-sells the series of chops of Matt Menard. Lee picks him up. Matt Menard goes for a series of elbows, and then he goes for the powerbomb, and we got a cover, and the babyfaces get the win. This was a fine match. I didn't really care a lot about it. This is when really my interest of the show started to dive deep and just dive, further down, because at this point I was just not really that invested on what they were basically doing on the show. But it was a fine match. Again, the pairing of Keith Lee, Orange Cassidy, and Vikingo was the most random fucking pairing I've ever seen. They just randomly threw these guys together and just, had a 6-man tag team match. Keith Lee also shaved everything. He looks like the Keith Lee that we know and love. He doesn't look like, the freaking Keith Lee that came out with a fucking robe looking like a whole wizard. Honestly, again, and I don't give a shit if I get a lot of flack from this, but Keith Lee's AEW run, bro. Like, I feel like, and I hate being the guy to say this, but I have to say it. It's been disappointing after the whole Swerve stuff, really. What is Keith Lee doing? He is doing absolutely nothing. Now, people say, oh, yeah, but, his WWE run was so better. Yeah, his run in NXT was better, but his main roster run was dog shit. Absolute dog shit. But, bro, after the tag team title run he had with Swerve and, the brief feud that basically disappeared out of nowhere with Swerve, what is Keith Lee doing? He's doing absolutely nothing, and it sucks because Keith Lee is so fucking talented. But, bro, please do something with Keith Lee, for fuck's sakes. Do something with this guy. He is so talented in the fucking ring. Why are you not doing anything with Keith Lee? Do something with Keith Lee. Give this man some direction. That's all I ask for. Give this guy direction. Please give this guy direction. The Elite is backstage. Tonight on Dynamite, it's the Bucks and Hangman Page. And they have a trios open challenge. And then the Dark Order come in. Matt, of course, does his promo, but then the Dark Order come in and say that they're here to fight, and they are basically pissed off that Hangman Page left them, and they talk about how they abandoned them, and tonight they are not friends anymore. They are their opponents. So the Hung Bucks are going to be taking on the Dark Order. We got Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara in a backstage interview, and Chris Jericho talks about how it was the first time ever that Sting and Jericho were in the ring together for the first time. That is bigger, of course. Jericho and Sting, should be on TBS. It should be commentated by the one and only Tony Schiavone. Sting said he wanted more time with Jericho, and tonight he gets his nightmare, because tonight he will go deep inside of himself, and he's going to bring out the Painmaker. And he knows a thing or two about being dark, and tonight he isn't facing Jericho. You are facing the Painmaker. Let's get dirty, Sting, says Jericho. Let's put the whole paint in the dirt, and while it comes to a bloody mess, right, Sammy? And then there we go. That's basically the little backstage segment right over there. All right. After that, we got the Hung Bucks, Hangman Adam Page and the Young Bucks, Matt Jackson and Nick Jackson, taking on Dark Order's John Silver, Alex Reynolds, and Evil Uno. The story going on in this match is the fact that Dark Order is pissed off. They are absolutely pissed off that Hangman Page is reuniting with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. And they were pissed off because they were with Hangman the entire time where Hangman was going against the Elite and when Kenny Omega had the AEW World Championship. So now they are pissed off that Hangman Page is going against them. It was a great story told in this match. I'll admit, though, in the beginning stages of the 6-man match, I wasn't really interested at all. Not only that, the crowd was not really into what they were watching, in the beginning stages of this match. Really, near the end was where the crowd really started to get more invested in the match. That's my opinion, at least. But nonetheless, this was a good match. Of course, Hangman Page, is just completely conflicted with all this drama going on with Dark Order. And, of course, there was some tension going on with Matt Jackson and Hangman Page because, of course, during the match, Hangman Page did not want to, get a hand on any of the members of the Dark Order, but he had no choice. And, yeah, so let's go through the match. Hangman Page and Alex Reynolds argue. Nick and Alex start. We get a near fall. We get an Escalaire arm drag by Nick Jackson on Alex. After that, Silver makes the tag. Hangman goes for the tag. Both men argue once again. Both lock up. We get a side headlock takeover by Hangman, but then Silver goes for the head scissors. After that, he goes for the shoulder tackle, and then we get a waist lock by Hangman. And then Silver goes for the back elbow. Matt Jackson tags in. Evil Uno makes the tag, and then he goes for the shoulder tackle. After that, he takes out Hangman, and then he sends Matt into the corner. Alex Reynolds tags in. We get a kick by Matt on Uno, and then we get a drop kick by Nick. After that, we get a drop kick by Silver, but then we get the Gutbuster and Neckbreaker combination by the Young Bucks. After that, Uno goes for the double clothesline. Hangman then after that leaves the ring. After that, Uno turns and gets hit with a double super kick. Matt goes to the top, but then Matt and Nick take out Dark Order on the outside. At this point, Matt Jackson is pissed off at Hangman because, of course, Hangman needs to be focused on the match, but instead he's conflicted with all this fucking drama going on with the Dark Order. Hangman makes the tag. Of course, Hangman, as I stated earlier, is conflicted. And then he tags in Nick. Once we're back from commercial break, we get a kick by Reynolds on Nick. Evil Uno tags in. Then we get a boot by Uno, and then we get a snap suplex, and then we get a cutter. After that, he hits the pile driver on Nick Jackson. And then we get a cover and a near fall when Hangman makes the save. Hangman and Uno argue once again. Then Uno gets the first shot and slaps the living shit out of Hangman, and this is exactly where Hangman got pissed off. He tagged himself in, and what happens? Both men go for a series of exchanges. Matt Jackson comes in. He gets sent to the outside, as well as Nick Jackson. We get a boot by Hangman, but then Hangman picks up Uno, but then Silver goes for the dropkick. Alex Reynolds tags in. We get a senton on the outside by Evil Uno, but then we get a DDT and a double stomp onto the outside. After that, once we're back in the ring, Dark Order is in control. Alex Reynolds and John Silver go for their combinations of spots and strikes, which looks absolutely phenomenal. I always love when they do that. Dark Order try to go for the pendulum bomb, but after that, Silver gets taken to the outside. Then after that, we get a facebuster by Nick. Then he ends up hitting a moonsault. We get a lariat by Hangman. He goes to the apron, but then the Bucks come in. We get a double tope by the Bucks, and then Silver continues to go for the head scissors, and then we get a near fall. We then get a backslide from Silver and repeated kicks, but then Hangman goes for the Deadeye. Hangman is on the apron again. The Bucks end up going for the BTE trigger. And Hangman after that goes for the buckshot lariat, and we get a cover, and the Elite win the match. We get a cover, and the Elite win, of course, and then after the match, the Elite come to the aid of Dark Order. But then after the match, the Blackpool Combat Club attack the Elite. And what happens is Dark Order retreats. Dark Order retreats they absolutely do not help Matt and Nick Jackson and Hangman Page. They just walk up the ramp. Moxley is literally dangling on the ropes, like turned around while the Blackpool Combat Club is just beating the shit out of the Elite. Pretty badass look right there. Mox turns away from all the beatings, of course. He has the mic, and he says that this has been a real blast. Elite, it's about time that this comes to an end. It's about time that they finish this. They have pushed to their limits, and now they push beyond their limits. July 19th, Boston, TD Garden. Just like someone once said, blood and guts. And it's now official. We will be getting the Blackpool Combat Club versus the Elite July 19th in a blood and guts match. I think it was pretty obvious that we were going to be getting a match like blood and guts. I mean, blood and guts is an annual thing, so it makes total sense for this match to happen. Now, what's interesting about the Blackpool Combat Club side of this whole blood and guts match is Bryan Danielson is currently injured, so that leaves off one guy. We all know Konosuke Takeshita is going to be involved, but who is going to be the replacement of Bryan Danielson? Could it be a guy like Shota Umino? We do not know, but I doubt it's going to be a New Japan guy, but we're going to have to wait and see. But when it comes to the Elite side, of course, it's going to be Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, and Hangman Adam Page. But who is that other member? It's pretty obvious who that other member is going to be, and that, of course, is none other than the one and only Kota Ibushi. Yes, Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi are going to be reuniting, and the Golden Lovers, or if you want to say, the Golden Elite, is going to be a thing in AEW. And honestly, man, imagine fucking Kota Ibushi in a blood and guts match. This man will go absolutely crazy. Imagine the dynamic that but imagine the dynamic that Kota Ibushi and Konosuke Takeshita have in that ring. These men are going to fucking tear the house down in that fucking cage. But overall, Blood and Guts has been officially announced. It's going to be the Blackpool Combat Club versus the Elite. Of course, Bryan Danielson is not going to be involved because he has a very serious injury and he's going to be out from roughly around 6 to 8 weeks. So they're going to have to find a replacement, but it's going to be interesting to see who that replacement for Danielson is going to be. But overall, great stuff. I'm excited. What role does the Dark Order have to play in all of this? Could the Elite feud with the Dark Order after their feud with the Blackpool Combat Club? We absolutely do not know. But my biggest hope for the Elite after this whole feud, honestly, as much as I would love a Dark Order Elite feud, I think we all know the feud that we all want to see. Let's be honest with ourselves. We all know the feud that we want to see. We want to see CM Punk and FTR take on the Elite at Wembley Stadium. That is exactly what I want to see. But it looks like that's probably not going to happen. But I may be totally wrong. But honestly, from what it looks like right now, Collision is CM Punk's show. The Elite is Dynamite is the Elite show. I doubt that's going to be happening, but the fan in me just really wants it. And at the end of the day, it's a business. The AEW is going to get a lot of fucking traction if they do that program. Let's be honest with ourselves. What would you rather see, a CM Punk Elite feud or a Dark Order Elite feud? Both of them would be great. But if you had to choose one, what would you choose? Clearly, they choose the CM Punk feud. Because, of course, it's based off reality, and reality fucking sells. Okay? That's all I'm going to say about that. Adam Cole is backstage with Roderick Strong. Adam Cole says he can't trust MJF, but then MJF comes in, and he wants to leave with Adam Cole. But then Cole says he's definitely going to be watching the show back. The thing is MJF, he basically said he's not going to be watching the show back. But, of course, he's speaking with Roderick Strong, and interesting developments right over there, man. The dynamic with Adam Cole and MJF, it's only going to get better. Yes, it is. Can they coexist? But still, I think it's going to be a great dynamic between the two guys, and they're going to have fantastic chemistry with one another. After that, we got Jungle Boy Jack Perry. Of course, he turned heel, and yes, he did turn heel this past Sunday at Forbidden Door, turning on Hook. Now, this promo, I don't know about you guys, but there was a lot of mixed reactions when it came to Jack Perry's promo this past Wednesday on Dynamite. I have some things to say, and you guys are going to be shocked with what I have to say, to be quite honest with you. But let's go through this promo by Jack Perry. Jack Perry comes out to Tarzan Boy, and what happens is Jungle Boy immediately says, "Turn that garbage off. You have all ruined that song for him, and we are never going to be hearing it again. But you know what? Boo all you want, because it doesn't change the fact that he has a car in the back waiting to take him to the airport. Y'all are stuck here with all these goddamn wildfires. And, of course, he is still young. He's cashing in fat checks, and he's banging the hottest bitch in this entire place." Of course, he's talking about Anna Jay because, of course, Jack Perry and Anna Jay are dating in real life. Toronto, let me ask you a question. Did I turn on Hook, or did everybody turn on me? After everything that I've done, everything that I've given you, I've been robbed of 2 world championships. You expect me to watch a second-generation prick, shove his whole belt in his face? And the funny thing is, that belt isn't even recognized by this company. It's the same reason he doesn't recognize him, Hook. He calls him a fraud, and he never needed him. Jungle Hook was special because of him. He was lucky to stand next to him in the ring, but you know what? You know what that title means to him? He knows what that title means to his family, and of course he points to Taz, who's on commentary. That is exactly why I will take it from you. And he hears everybody, and he says Hook will kill him. And then after that, he talks about how he says when he gets his hand on him, he will still beat the living shit out of him. And what happens is Hook comes out, and he chases the living shit out of Jungle Boy. Now, usually, when a babyface chases a heel, the heel would run to the crowd, and the babyface would literally stop, and the heel would just run all the way down. This was very different. Hook being Hook, and being the quiet badass, the cold-hearted, handsome devil that AEW loves to call him, chases the living shit out of Jungle Boy. Jack Perry literally runs to the crowd, and Hook fucking continues on. He continues on and chases his ass all the way to the back. The camera follows Jungle Boy, and Jungle Boy literally, in the smoothest way possible, runs to the car, jumps inside the car, and the car just fucking dips. And then, of course, Hook is pissed off. He fucking kicks the garbage can. All that shit. He is pissed off. But we right now have a program with Hook and Jack Perry. Now, what are my thoughts on this Jungle Boy Jack Perry heel promo? I'm not going to be like all these other people and immediately bash this promo. The reason why I say that is because we are just scratching. We're not even scratching the surface of a heel Jack Perry. Could his promos be improved? Absolutely. But I will say, this promo was 10 times better than any other fucking promo that Jack Perry cut as a babyface. Because if you guys do not remember, in the build-up to their four-way match, of course, MJF, Darby, Allin, Sammy, Guevara, and Jungle Boy, there were some segments, not the first one, but there was another segment that you had Jungle Boy, Sammy Guevara, and Darby Allin all in the center of the ring. If you were to rank those three guys, of course, Sammy would clearly be number 3, Jack Perry would be number 2, and Darby Allin be number 1. If you compare just those three and not MJF. But those guys definitely looked like they were struggling a lot on the microphone, that as soon as MJF came out in that particular segment, he basically saved that whole segment. I feel like in this promo that Jungle Boy cut, I felt like he felt more comfortable in the role that he was playing. Because let's be honest with ourselves, if you are a wrestler, if you think about it, it's so much easier to have the people hate you than to have the people cheer you. That is the biggest takeaway that I can have to any wrestling heel. And that is exactly why this heel character for Jungle Boy works for him. It works for him. Was it perfect? No. Could it be better? Yes. We will literally judge in maybe 3 months, 4 months, 6 months time if this thing is going to be deemed a failure or this thing is going to be a success. But from this first promo that Jack Perry cut, in my opinion, I think we're in a step in the right direction. But I also talked about this in my Forbidden Door review. Him feuding with Hook is great because it not only gives Jack Perry some sort of direction, because let's be honest, after the four-way match that we all knew Jack Perry was not going to be winning, there was really no sense of direction when it came to Jack Perry. Now there is. But it also gives some sort of direction with Hook. Because let's be real here. What really has Hook been doing this year alone? He wasn't really doing anything of importance. Now Hook is in a program with Jungle Boy. So hopefully that gives Hook some sort of direction for his character. And I definitely hope that it can get over Hook over as a just badass babyface and Jack Perry as just a piece of shit heel. That is what I see being the case. But also, the look that Jack Perry has, man, I know a lot of people were comparing this to Danny Masterson's Stephen Hyde character from that 70s show. He looks exactly like fucking Stephen Hyde from that 70s show. The only difference is he's not smoking pot in a basement and he's not talking about a car that runs on water. If you guys do not know, that's not from that 70s show. I'm a big That 70s Show fan. Danny Masterson, I'm not a fan of him. He's a horrible human being, but the character of Stephen Hyde is arguably one of my favorite, characters from the show, in my opinion. He definitely looked like Stephen Hyde, so that was funny as shit. But again, I think Jungle Boy Jack Perry as a heel is suited much better as a heel. Now, is he going to reunite with Christian Cage because Christian Cage is also a heel? No, he's not. But, again, Jack Perry is better off on his own. He really is. But overall, I thought this was a pretty good segment for Jack Perry. We got Ruby Soho versus a jobber, Alexia Nicole. Ruby goes for the takedown. Basically, it was a squash match. I don't really have to go deep through in the match. But Ruby cuts a promo. Originally, this match was scheduled to be Britt Baker versus Ruby Soho, a rematch. And on commentary, they called it a rematch that everybody's been wanting to see. Now, not as what everybody's been wanting to see, but a rematch from the finals of last year's Owen Hart Cup tournament. I'm going to go on a limb and say this. The finals between Ruby Soho and Britt Baker last year at Double or Nothing was not a good match whatsoever. That's all I'm going to say about that. I love both, but that wasn't a good match. Ruby cuts a promo. And what happened was they were scheduled to wrestle in the quarterfinals of the Owen Hart Cup tournament, but Britt Baker is out with the flu. So Ruby cuts a promo, and she says, Canada's Finest isn't here, her original intended opponent. Her original intended opponent was Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. She's supposed, she has all to thank of her filthy, disgusting germ. Jesus Christ, my notes are ass. But she says we have to thank, this germ-written country. Talks about how she is sick, and don't worry, next week she would challenge her in the first round. Rookies get whatever they want nowadays. Her boyfriend didn't even show up at Forbidden Door. They used to be a power couple. Britt, get your head out of the toilet. When she first got there, she said she didn't know who she was. She wasn't lying when she did. Honestly, she loves who she is. She loves who she is standing. She is a shell of her former self. She wants Britt to look at herself in the mirror. Talks about how last year she barely beat her in the finals of her best day, but now we're taking everything that meant to her, and next week she will take the opportunity to be the two-time Owen Hart Cup winner until she is left with what she is. Absolutely nothing. This was a pretty good promo by Ruby Soho. Usually I always criticize a lot of stuff that is going on with the Outcasts because, let's be honest, the Outcasts, nobody watches AEW to watch the Outcasts. I'm being brutally honest. But Ruby Soho gave a fantastic promo. Can we please have more promos with Ruby Soho instead of just having unnecessary run-ins regarding the Outcasts? Please. But overall, this was not a bad promo by Ruby Soho. Johnny TV is backstage and talk about how they will challenge Matt Hardy, I believe the Hardy Boys, and the other Isaiah Cassidy on Rampage. Johnny TV, yeah, he made his return on Rampage, aka John Morrison, aka Johnny Mundo, aka Johnny Impact. Yeah, he made his debut on Rampage. Nobody gives a shit about Rampage. After that, we got the main event. We got the Rainmaker, Chris Jericho, and Sammy Guevara to take on Sting, Darby Allin, in a Tornado Tag Team match. This match was clearly better than the match that they had at Forbidden Door. Of course, it was the Suzuki Gods, Jericho, Sammy, and Minoru Suzuki taking on Sting, Darby Allin, and Tetsuya Naito. This match was clearly better than the match that they had at Forbidden Door, in my opinion. Now, I will say, the Sting spot fucking scared the shit out of me, but I'll talk about that later. Darby goes after Sammy. Sting and Jericho are in the ring. Jericho has the bat. Sting grabs the bat. Sting is in control. Darby comes in. He goes for the Stinger Splash. Sammy ends up going for the cutter, and then Sammy and Jericho go after Sting. Sting gets sent to the barricade, and then Sting grabs a ladder. He brings it in the ring, and then Jericho hits Darby with the chair meanwhile. Sammy sends Darby to the steel steps, and then Jericho drops Darby Allin onto the apron. And then they send Darby to the steel steps, but then Darby rolls over the steps and lands over the barricade. That looked fucking brutal, man. Darby Allin is the modern-day Sabu. I don't give a shit what anybody says. He is a modern-day Sabu. This guy puts his body on the line every fucking day. It is crazy. Once we're back from commercial break, Sammy goes for the cutter onto the outside. Darby is on the top. He goes for the coffin drop on Sammy. Stinger ends up going for a Stinger splash on Jericho. Darby and Sting pull out 2 tables, and this is where it gets fucking crazy. Darby is in the ring. He sets up the ladder. Sting places Sammy onto the ladder. Sting climbs the ladder. Now, Darby actually climbed the ladder first. And what happened was he climbs the ladder. Sting also climbs the ladder, and he's like, no, don't do it. Let me do it. This fucking guy, Sting is 64 years old. Steve Borden is 64 years old. This man fucking dropped on top of the ladder and landed on 2 tables on Sammy Guevara, and he landed on his fucking mouth or his chin. I could easily say that that was a mark-out moment. Maybe me 2 years ago would say that, but looking at that, man, it genuinely scared the fuck out of me. Because I understand Sting wants to go all out. I get it. But, bro, he is 64 years old, bro. He doesn't need to go out there and do a spot like he did with Sammy Guevara. That legitimately scared the living hell out of me. It really did. I was so worried for Sting. Thankfully, nothing severe happened, but, bro, that spot should have went to Darby. It should have went to Darby. It should have went to Sting, in my opinion. I didn't even like the table spot with Sting at Forbidden Door either. I didn't like that spot either, but if Sting wants to go out on a bang, let him go out on a bang, but that's just my personal opinion. I genuinely did not like the spot. I didn't like the spot whatsoever. Later on, Darby Allin goes for a skateboard jump onto the back of Jericho. We get a cover engineer fall. Jericho then drives Darby onto the ladder, and then he throws it on Darby. At this point, Jericho is in control. Darby goes for a hammer throw on Jericho face first onto the ladder. Darby then goes for a springboard coffin splash countered when Jericho hits him with the skateboard. After that, he goes for the Judas effect, taking Darby to the outside. At this point, Sting is behind Jericho. Jericho reverses. He applies the walls on Sting. Sting grabs the bat, and then he hits it on the head of Jericho. At this point, Jericho is just bleeding at this point. We get the Stinger splash by Sting. Jericho then goes for the Codebreaker. We get a cover and a kick out. After that, he tries to go for the Judas effect, but he missed. But then Sting ends up going for the Scorpion Death Drop. We get a cover and a kick out. After that, Sting fights off Jericho. Sting catches Jericho with another Codebreaker, but then Sting later on applies the Scorpion Deathlock, and Jericho taps out, and Sting and Darby Allin win this Tornado Tag Team match. This was a great match. Again, it was 10 times better than what we got at Forbidden Door because, of course, no other match was going to follow Ospreay versus Omega. Just no other match was going to follow it. But overall, it was a great match. Again, I did not like that Sting spot. Again, I legitimately got worried for the health of Sting. But, again, if Sting wants to do what he wants to do, let him do it. But, again, the shit that he did was not safe whatsoever. The way Sting landed on his chin or his mouth, I don't know, man. That looked fucking brutal. And, like, the way he landed on his knees as well, that shit looked ridiculous. But hopefully Sting can just relax a little bit. I love Sting. He's one of my favorites. But, bro, relax with the shit that you're doing. You are 64 years old. Please. But aside from that, where do we go from here? We didn't really get enough storytelling developments or storyline developments regarding Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho. I think it's pretty obvious that Jericho and Sammy are going to be splitting, and we're eventually going to be getting a one-on-one program with Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho. We just do not know when. Do I see AEW giving us a Sting versus Jericho one-on-one match? Honestly, I do see that being the case. When could that be? I have absolutely no idea. Could it be at Wembley? Maybe. Is Wembley Stadium, Sting's last match? Sting flat out said at the media scrum, like, I don't plan on retiring at All In, but, we're just going to have to wait and see what Sting does. But at this point, of course, Sting is in the last few months of his career. So honestly, if Sting wants to go all out, let him go all out. But again, that spot was fucking brutal. But when it comes to Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho, I definitely do see them having a one-on-one program, and hopefully it can elevate Sammy Guevara further down. But we're just going to have to wait and see in the future. But overall, this was not a bad match whatsoever. So yeah, that was my AEW Dynamite review from June 28th, 2023. Overall thoughts on this show. It was a fine show. Nothing really special happened on the show. We had a lot of randomness on the show. Really, the only important thing that happened was the main event and the whole Blackpool Combat Club stuff. Really, nothing else. Even the Adam Cole and MJF stuff wasn't really that special if you really think about it. They only had 2 backstage segments on this show, and that was it. MJF was not even in the ring. Adam Cole was not in the ring. Nothing really special happened on this show. But overall, it was a pretty underwhelming show. One of the Dynamites that I didn't really enjoy this week. But yeah, that was my AEW Dynamite review from June 28th, 2023. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, of course, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the Squared Circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And, as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys later.